bit sort of more in depth. I'm not going to go through settings of the game. I'm going to go through the more in-depth behind the scenes of ArmA 3 and the configuration files and how you can get more frames. Now, first thing you want to do is you want to go into your like your actual like files, this bit here, where you get all your different files and stuff. So whatever your library is, and then you're going to go through that, My Documents, and then ArmA 3. Let's turn that, actually let's turn that off. That's probably going to be better. So yeah, so go into your C drive, wherever it might. No, it's not in your C drive. It'll just be on like Start menu, and then whatever your folders are here. Your personal folder is describing it as. SBIGs, My Documents, ArmA 3. Yours will obviously be something different to this. And when you get there, you want to go to ArmA 3 CFG, which is config file. Right click that and then edit with Notepad, and then you'll be greeted with this. So you've only got two things to edit here, and that's GPU max frames ahead and GPU detected frames ahead. I don't know what yours would be at. It might be something ridiculous, but change them to 1. I think you can even change it to 0, and the less that you have, the more frames that you get. I've always done this. It's worked for me, but I sort of had the query of, okay, what is that actually doing? I'm going to be highlighting this, by the way, as well, so anyone that might miss this, then they'll be able to see it as well. I actually googled it, like, what does it actually do? And someone on the Daisy game forums, actually called K Gangster, actually answers the question, what do they actually do? So if you have 0 max frames ahead, your GPU will not prepare frames ahead that are displayed, causing less stress on the GPU, but as a consequence the game will stutter. I've not really noticed a stutter. You can pretty much ignore that. Decrease mouse lag since you've got more since you have more frames in your game, because there is less stress on the GPU. The more max frames that you put, for example 3, so if I change them to 3 before the frames are displayed, the GPU is already calculating 3 frames ahead, making the game run smoother but at a lower FPS, increasing mouse input lag. So I've put mine to 1. In theory you could put it to 0, that would give you more frames. I don't know what the default is. I think it's on something completely randomly high or whatever. Next, what should we do next? Next, I'll do this one. I'll get this one out of the way. If you've got an Intel processor, you can pretty much ignore this bit. If you've got an AMD processor, especially if you've got about 6 cores or more, what you'll probably find is that some of your cores are actually being what's called parked while your game is running. So in essence, your game is not using all of your cores in your processor. See, look, yours was at 1000. You see what I mean? That's ridiculous. Just change it to 1 or something. And no, if you can tweak it to how you wish. If you change it to 1 and you notice that, oh, I'm getting all these frames, but it is a bit stuttery, you know, 500, 250, whatever you want. But yeah, AMD. So what you're probably going to want to do, I'm going to full screen this, is go for some kind of program which is called, this is just one I chose an example. I'm not partnered with these guys. There's no reason to go specifically for this one. But you can get these programs which effectively disable parking the cores, in which you're actually then going to be able to use more of your cores for your games. There's quite a few of these different programs. I used this when I had an AMD processor. I don't anymore because I've got Intel now. So you might want to, you know, just Google that, have a look at that, see what you think. Next, startup parameters, which I've actually got this link here. Now, unfortunately, I can't show you my ArmA 3 launcher, unfortunately, which is quite annoying. What if let's just create a new one. So basically, if I copy and paste my launch parameters, can I do that? Let me do it. There we go. Right, so what I've got in my launch parameters is all that. So what does it do? So CPU count, you can basically state how many CPUs your computer has to make sure that the game is utilizing all of them. X threads. I've actually forgotten what X threads does. X threads. Change to a number 1, 0, 1, 3, 5, and 7. This will override auto detection, which will use 3 for dual core and 7 for quad core. Details below. Okay, so X threads. Number 1, 7. I've got mine on 7 because I think I've got 6 cores in my computer. Can you give advice on dual monitors? I have not done anything to my setup in thought of dual monitors. I'm literally doing a general overview. If your game doesn't launch after making each of these changes, try undoing. I've never noticed any issues when I've done it, Chris. I've never noticed any difference. So yeah, X threads. You might want to leave that out because I'm not entirely sure. I just know that that was recommended to me and it works. Maximum memory. So this is RAM, the maximum amount of RAM that you've got in your computer. It will always default to a maximum of 2047. So there's no real point in putting any more than that. I'll just put 2047. No logs. No pause, no splash, and world empty. This is basically all to do with loading the game quicker, stuff like that. No pause allows you to allow the game running even when it's not in. So when I tab out, even though I'm on full screen, you can still see the game running. So that's the no pause is mainly a stream thing for me, not really anything else. No logs. I think is something to do with loading in being quicker. And these are all ones that I use right now. Splash screen. If any of you might have seen when I'm in the game, but I'm in the menu, there's no world in the background, and there's no firing and stuff like that. That's because I've done the no splash, and also the world empty, so that when it loads in, it's not having to load those textures for the loading screen and whatnot. So that's basically what I've got. I'm going to post this in chat, this link, so that you can have a look for yourself and then try some things. Some of the things, for example, CPU count, X threads, maximum memory, maybe look into that a bit more, but you know, it seems to work for me. So let me just post that in chat and then you can have a look at those. So yeah, so you've got the max frames ahead, which we've done. Startup parameters. Let me do a screenshot actually, because there's something that I noticed with the ArmA III launcher. Let me just show you something, and hopefully a print screen will show you. God, there you can see everything. Image crop. So yeah, so now what you'll actually notice is you may not need to do that anymore, because when you're actually in the launcher, you've got no splash, skip intro, windowed mode, profiles. I've got all mine. Oh, let's go. Move it over here. I've got all mine in there, but some of these things allow you to do it by default. And if I switch over to this, print that screen, image crop. You can see there that you got CPU count, X thread. Oh my god, X threads, maximum memory, maximum VRAM, no logs. This is all actually within the ArmA III launcher, so you might not need to do those things. But I haven't tested these out yet, so I can't say yes or no whether they are as good. I'm pretty sure they would be. What have you got there? Yeah, I'm not sure what you mean by the trouble. Oh, I'm not too sure, Cheeser Munchies. I'm not too sure what the issue might be there, I'm afraid. Right, Another question that I get asked a lot, and this isn't really to do with performance, this is more to do with field of view in game with ArmA 3. So the second file that we're going to be looking at, no, which is why it didn't change. Oh my god, I'm so stupid. Okay, I actually do need to do this myself because I'm on the wrong one. You've got other profiles. Your main profile will be in just ArmA 3, and then if you've got any other profiles, they'll be in other profiles. So SBig's TV. Now I want to go to, that's already open. You don't want to do vars because that'll just bring up ridiculous stuff. You want to do the other one, and that brings up this. Now, as default, what you want to do, what you want to do on this file is you'll load up this into Notepad, and then all the way down the very bottom, you're going to have Fov left and Fov top, and you want to really concentrate on left to begin with. As default, your viewing radius, as it were, is I think 75 degrees. So your Fov left, everyone on there should have about 1.30 something. I'd have mine to about 85 or 90. And what you want to do, you just go on Google and just type in 85 degrees in radians. I actually want to change this to 148. And then I'm actually going to have an 85 field of view. So the camera's actually going to be set a little bit further back. And then you're going to have a wilder field of view. Obviously, the problem with that is that when it comes to a gunfight, you're not going to be zoomed in as much to be able to get an accurate shot, which is kind of what I've noticed. I used to have mine on 90, but I've kind of toned it back a bit more. You need to do Fov top as well, because otherwise it's just all going to be ridiculous. So all you want to do is think of a monitor, 16 by 9. So you want to do 1.48 divided by 16, which is the width. The fuck is that? Yes, I mean your boil. Times it by 9, which is the height. And that brings that to 0.83. So I need to now change that to 0.83. And then save. So now my field of view is actually going to be 85 degrees. Nothing to do with performance. I think actually the further back your camera is does have an impact because it is rendering more stuff in. But yeah, so I'm going to tone that back to 85 degrees instead. Now I think there was one more thing that I was going to cover. I think we've done the ArmA 3 config. We've done the launch parameters. We've done, I think that's everything actually. I do think that's everything. So I can now close all these down, and we should be good to go. The only other thing would be the settings in game, like what you've got your textures at, whether they're very high or ultra. That's kind of computer specific. No core parking on Intel. No, Intel's good enough, and the game will already pick up how many cores that you've got. So, if it doesn't, you can just use the CPU count. But it's just an AMD thing. AMD, as default, when you enter a game, they will start parking cores when it's not needed, so you're not getting the full range of your CPUs. But Intel don't do that. Oh no, Pripyats! No. So anyway, any questions? Any questions on what we've discussed? I'm going to highlight it anyway, so that if you want to go back to it and you know, refer back to it and then change any settings on there, then you can do. They're kind of the main things. 360. You probably could. I did actually once on, you could, because those work with it works with the DayZ mod as well. You can change your thing with the DayZ mod. And once, like, just for a laugh, I changed my FOV to about 150, and I felt so sick because everything was so zoomed out and it was like a fisheye lens. It was ridiculous. So I wouldn't recommend it, because especially when you're trying to look through the gun, You're going to be so far behind your hands, it's just going to be ridiculous. You're not going to be able to see anything. How do I run around? It's not to do with performance. How you doing, Mr. Greaves? So yeah, so that's pretty much everything. And as I said, you know, settings in game is more of a personal thing, dependent on what your computer that you've got. You've got an FPS counter on your settings. Try different things. You'll probably find that shadows have a bit of an impact. Any effects like picture-in-picture, particle effects, any blurring like anti-aliasing or post-processing will have quite an impact on your FPS. So, you know, you can see that on mine, I've got mine normally on 0. Yeah, I like a little bit of blurriness in the background. So I've got 10, but everything else I've just got disabled or 0. Look at FPS, that's ridiculous. Texture's very high. That means everything looks pretty. Everything else I don't think is needed. I like having a bit of shadow as well, just to add a bit of realism. What's the best way to see your FPS? Okay, there's actually 2 ways that you can do this. Number 1, just by going into your settings, you've got an FPS counter here. Number 2, let me just exit out of the game. Number 2, if you go to Steam and then settings, which I won't show just yet because I don't know what this is going to show. It might have personal. No, that seems to be fine. Okay, cool. So when you go into your settings, so you just go Steam and then settings, you get greeted with this. You've got beta participation. Alright. Change that to Steam beta update. It'll take a little bit of time to update. Let me just check which one it is. Where is in-game? Okay, in-game. Cool. And then when you scroll down to in-game, you can actually have an in-game FPS counter, which you can select where it is, if it's high contrast and stuff like that. So you can actually have an FPS counter in-game, and this will be for any game that you play on Steam. Yes, that is Bad Rats. I was gifted that. I didn't buy it. So yeah, you can actually have an FPS counter in-game, so when you're playing a game, it's a bit like, you know, Fraps, if you've ever seen people with Fraps, and they've got like an FPS counter. Same as that, but this is actually through Steam, which is very, very clever. Very good. That's my death counter. I might want